Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star sports podcast, presented by
Underdog. What's the rest? What's the next?
Speed of Lightning.
Speed of Lightning.
Bolt of Thunder.
We used to call it SportsBeat Live. For a moment there was going to be SportsBeat Unalive with Vahe in the chair.
Well, I did. Our audience should know that I almost had an unfortunate lean-back accident in the chair, but like an underdog, I rallied.
And Blair and I would have continued on.
Well, the show must go on.
I would have been all good with that.
So the voices that you're hearing belong to star columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're at Chiefs camp, and we're going to talk about, strangely enough, the Chiefs.
What?
Day 12 of training camp, 12 of, I believe, 17 practices. Anybody hitting a wall yet?
I'm okay, but I haven't come every single day like you have. Maybe you missed one. So I'm pretty good, and I feel like we're probably a little relieved by the weather the last couple times we've been up here because it was pretty punishing those first days. I can't imagine just being out there in the pads on these days.
I thought the day of the long drive drill, I forgot the date.
Hottest day we've had.
I think it was last Tuesday.
It was the hottest day that we've had, and to do that drill in the hottest day made Andy Reid gleeful, I think. He was just couldn't have been happier with the conditions.
It's funny you say that. I remember thinking he was giddy when he came into the tent. Like usually he comes in and he says, "All right." In this case, he came in and goes, "All right." And he was all on board. I spoke with somebody from Mosaic just casually about this, the healthcare team that's up here, and I was told they thought it was the hottest it had been in any of the times the Chiefs since the Chiefs have been coming here.
That's
between the heat index and the heat itself.
They'd know, right?
Yeah.
I forgot who we got in the press tent that day, but
it was Butker because you had a good question for him.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. Harrison Butker was. I think he led off, and here's a guy who basically doesn't come out and do any of the drills that his teammates do, but he was kind of overwhelmed by the heat that day.
Yeah, if I'm soaked to the skin, right. It's really hard. It was Butker, Kingsley, and some other player, but also Blair. I think you remember, and Sam too, that Andy Reid literally having the sweat dripping off his hat,
right? Which
was a different look to different dimension of it.
Wasn't that way today, as we record this on August 5th, a Tuesday. Pretty pleasant. I don't think it got to 80 degrees while the team was on the field. So we caught a break, and it's going to get progressively hotter through the week, but probably not as hot as it's going to be in Arizona on Saturday, right? Saturday game at State Farm Field or whatever it's called. And
I did look at the forecast, and it was I think we missed the heat wave of Thursday when it's going to be 118. But so I think it'll only be 110 when we fly in on Friday.
First Chiefs preseason game I ever covered was there, and it was 117 degrees. Walking from the car to the stadium, I'd never experienced that kind of heat. It was unbelievable.
I'm pretty sure it was the same trip, and I know I've told you guys a story, but I don't know if our audience knows this story. But I flew on a plane with Therese Paler to that game. And when they announced the temperature on the ground as we were landing, I think I said, you're welcome to Phoenix. It's 118. And Therese just turned to me and said, "Tell my parents I love them and my grandmom."
So the Chiefs, because it's game week, the Chiefs put out their first depth chart of the season. And we wrote a little bit about it, but did anything stand out to either of you guys about the depth chart? I wasn't surprised by any starter.
No, I mean, it's pretty clear the communication staff doesn't watch as closely as we do. I thought Christian Roland Wallace needs to be a lot higher on the depth chart. I think he's definitely carving out a role in the team. Jalen Royals was buried on the depth chart in a way that we haven't seen. He's playing almost exclusively with the ones out here. So little smaller stuff like that, I guess.
What about? Were you guys surprised by Felix?
In what way?
Well, I think he was third, was he not?
He was. He was
just on one edge, so that puts him in the 5th, 6th spot among edge rushers overall. That's about where he's been, I think.
I guess that's right, but he's behind Ashton Gelati, the rookie.
Yeah.
So I had the same observation, though, when I saw that. Former first-round draft pick, might expect him to rise a little bit in the rotation, but to be listed fifth, as at least 5, right?
Yeah, when you put it that way, yeah.
But I wonder about Felix, and we're waiting for him to flash out here, and I say it over and over again. It's difficult for defensive players to look good, except when they pick up an interception or the defensive linemen. They can't tackle the court. They can't tackle anybody, right? There's no tackling to the ground here, so it's tough. But he certainly is a guy that I'm going to be paying attention to on Saturday in Arizona. Yeah,
no doubt. I think that'll be a guy to watch. And, of course, the other side of this line of scrimmage, I'm sure, is what we'll really be watching.
Well, because that's kind of all we've seen, really, and since the end of last season, when you think about it, the off-season training and then training camp. But another person on the depth chart observation is Rashard Smith was listed as the number 2 return man, punt and kick, behind Nico Remigio, but ahead of Sky Moore and Tyquan Thornton, anybody else who we've seen in a return. And I don't know if that's will he be the second guy back on a kickoff? After Remigio fields the first punt, will he be the next guy out there to field a punt? I'll be curious to see about that.
How much do you guys feel like that will be truly determined by what we see in these preseason games versus what they, deeper intel they may come up with in what they see day in, day out in these practices? I mean, obviously it's a mixture of both. But, I mean, if he, to use the term you used earlier, flashes, against the Cardinals or Seahawks, does that change the algorithm a little?
I don't know. I don't know. We have more access to the Chiefs to watch practice here than we do anywhere else. When training camp ends, there's another week of being able to stay for the entire practice, but then that's it for the year. After that, it's just a few minutes of watching him stretch. And so, to me, one of the big advantages to being here and to watching practice is to see how they line up and who is running with the first team and the second team. It was here last week where we saw Jalen Moore get some reps at guard over in Kingsley Suamata'ia's place, and we've seen him line up at both tackle positions. So those are the kinds of things that you wouldn't necessarily see, if they made that move during the season. So to kind of circle back to what I was saying, I don't think there were any major surprises on the depth chart. And also it was, I don't know if it was identified as such on the notes, but I've heard it described as the unofficial depth chart. What's the official depth chart? Do you know?
Yeah, great question. Well, so does that mean it's not coach sanctioned? I mean,
yes, the coaches are not filling out these depth charts.
Yeah, and so what's the basis for the input then?
It's required by the NFL to put out a depth chart.
And the basis, the way it's gathered, is simply their observations.
I wasn't joking. It's the communication staff that puts it out.
Yeah.
So if we put out a depth chart, we'd probably be more accurate than the one that the Chiefs put out.
Maybe we shall.
Well, I guess we'll be looking forward to hearing from somebody on the communication staff after this outburst of yours.
It's not an outburst. They know we watch practice closely. We got a better seat than they do.
They don't watch practice at all.
Come at me.
Well, in fairness, they've got other duties. Mostly monitoring you.
There have been a couple of sort of nagging injuries that the Chiefs are having to deal with. Christian Fulton, the cornerback, hasn't practiced yet. He had, as we found out up here, some surgery in the offseason. I don't know when we're going to see him back. He's in the injury tent every day, and I don't know. It's getting to the point now where I wonder if we think about him suiting up for game one, real game one. We'll have to see about that. But more recently, Drew Tranquill, the linebacker, injured his back. Sam, you watched the play. I don't know if you saw the play, but you were the first one who saw him over on the sideline, sort of off by himself, and Rick Burkhalter rushed over there and they carted him off and up the hill. So that to me looms somewhat significant.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see him today. You mentioned the defensive side of the ball. This Hollywood Brown injured again. I think we can't treat as no big deal. But to me, the biggest one is Christian Fulton, because they spent a lot of money on Christian Fulton. I mean, he's making $10 million this year, 20 over 2. And I think Christian Fulton was brought in to allow them to better line up actually in the slot. Even though he's an outside cornerback, you can kick McDuffie into the slot. We've still seen Shamari Connor line up in the slot a lot in this camp, and I just think he's out of position there. I think he's a pretty good safety. I think he's a good dime defense player. But teams picked on him in the slot last year, and I'll say successfully so, because the Chiefs allowed, I think it was the 5th most yards out of the slot last year. And for a defense that finished top 5, when you don't have many weaknesses, like other teams are aware of that stat too, and they'll find your weakness. And last year was, when Najee Johnson was in there, they tried to go over the top against him deep. We've seen that happen sometimes in camp as Najee Johnson's running with the ones, and then the slot. And the answer to both of those in the Chiefs offseason was adding Christian Fulton, and we've yet to see him in camp. And he's got an injury history too. Like, this is not the first injury he's dealt with. This is already something you could question if he was healthy through camp, is can he make it through a 17-game season? Not having seen him here with only, 5 practices left in St. Joe, I certainly doubt whether or not we'll be seeing him in week 1. It's possible. I'm just saying, what evidence do you have to say you expect him to play in week 1 at this point?
Just to flip to the other side of the ball real quick, I mean, the Hollywood Brown injury is, we don't know the extent of it, but it does lead me to be thinking in terms of the possible ripples from it, because now that Rashee Rice's case has been adjudicated, he's soon, we hope, I guess, just for everybody's sake, to get clarity to get his NFL suspension. So to me, it seems like there's, at this point, till we know more about Hollywood Brown, is there not a legitimate chance that the Rice suspension could come in the next few weeks? And do we assume Hollywood Brown's back for the opener at this point? And
Well, he didn't break a clavicle, which is what kept him out of last season. But it's a high ankle, and
those are tricky.
And the Chiefs might find themselves starting this season where they finished last.
Exactly what I got thinking about it. And I don't remember which of you two brought this up, but one of the first things we were thinking about early in the offseason was that when they get this whole cast assembled, it'll be the first time you have Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Hollywood Brown on the field at the same time. I'm not sure that's going to happen for a while.
Yeah, beyond that, to me, it was the fact that those receivers were here last year. Even if Hollywood Brown only played a couple of games late in the season, he did complete training camp before the first preseason game when he got hurt. Xavier Worthy was here all last year, and Rashee Rice, again, if he was hurt, he's still a returning player. And every year, what we're usually talking about in these podcasts at camp is new wide receivers and trying to find connections with Patrick Mahomes. And I thought the Chiefs had a real advantage that actually, for once, was not a storyline of training camp, is how do you develop a connection between quarterback and receiver? He knows these guys, but those guys have to be on the field for that advantage to actually materialize.
Yeah.
Take a swing at picking sports this baseball season with Underdog. Playing on their app is as easy as choosing higher or lower on players' stats. Get them right, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Sign up today using promo code KCSTAR to get a gimme pick as a part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
So on Saturday, who needs to have a good game? Who would really benefit position on the depth chart by having a good game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think anyone who's I think when you ask that question, I think you start to think about the guys who might be sort of on that roster bubble. I mean, Vahe led off with one, which is, Felix Anudika-Uzomah, I think, needs to have a good showing in the actual games. I think that Tyquan Thornton is squarely on the team right now.
His arrow is pointing up.
Yeah, but I think, you'd like to see it in games, because anytime you put something out there about Tyquan Thornton performing well, you will get an onslaught of Patriots fans telling you, we've seen this story before. And so I think seeing it in games would be different. And then I just think rookies, too. And that includes the first-round pick. I mean, Josh Simmons is going to be the left tackle in week 1, health pending. But I still think you want a rookie like that to get off to a pretty good start, even if it's just 7 snaps in preseason. You don't want to see him get beat a couple times against an Arizona team that did not have a good defensive line a year ago.
But I guess, I don't know how this fits into the big picture in terms of what matters the most, but I'm interested to see what Brashard Smith does, and if he's got, a little bit of that hybrid hopes or whatever it is we're going to see him be. And I got the sense that maybe he's uphill a little bit with the playbook. We'll see how that is. And I do wonder, like, the guys like the rookie defensive lineman, that's going to be interesting, and
Omar Norman Lott, and Ashton
Gelati particularly, both those guys, they've seemed to have been what they hoped that they are so far. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that stand out to me in addition to what Sam pointed out. What are you thinking about, Blair? Anything different than that?
Well, one thing I'd like to see is Kingsley Suamataia take more than 5 snaps, or however many snaps the starting offense is going to have on the first series. I want to see him in there for a second series. I thought that was as it turns out, a mistake last year not to give him more playing time in the preseason.
I think that as we've watched the offensive line a lot, I mean, our eyes have been really on the offensive line, particularly when they do the one-on-one drills with defensive linemen. I think I have the most questions about him among the 5 that they're planning to start. And we've seen Jalen Moore play with at right tackle as Juwan Taylor comes back from a knee injury that, you wrote about, Blair, that he, bothered him a lot a year ago. I still think that Juwan Taylor will be their right tackle, even though it has the appearance of this competition. I still think it's more about Taylor's health than his performance. But my point in saying that is he hasn't done a ton of the one-on-one drill stuff. Taylor hasn't. But, Kingsley's, been beat some by the defensive line. Look, that happens in training camp. But what's the game going to look like? And they're just in a really interesting spot with him because they benched him mid-game last year.
Week 2.
It never asked him to play another meaningful snap of football again. And so if he's not the guy and you have to remove him off the field, that might be it for him on your team. And so, he's got to get off to a pretty good start.
How many snaps is Jalen Moore going to get at what position on Saturday? I mean, will it be...
He might end up leading the team in snaps.
Playing 3 different spots?
Maybe. But going back to Kingsley for a second, the Chiefs have... Obviously, they moved Kingsley to guard during the season and had him practice there. And then he played the Week 18 game against the Broncos. And he gets all this high praise for that. He didn't necessarily grade out very well by Pro Football Focus, and the Chiefs only had 33 offensive snaps in that game.
Yeah, not a huge sample size. I do the Broncos had the highest pressure rate in the league last year. Zach Allen.
It's a great defense. Broncos have a great defense.
Zach Allen led all interior linemen in pressures. He passed Chris Jones for first in that game because Chris Jones set out. Otherwise, Jones would have led the league in pressures, even though he only had 5.5 sacks. He still was there in pressures. So I thought it was and plus the offensive line undoubtedly benefits from having Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. I think there's this perception that, he likes to hold the ball longer and he scrambles a lot. That makes the offensive line jobs harder. He avoids sacks well. And so Kingsley had a tough assignment in Week 18, protecting for Carson Wentz, playing against that defensive line. Doesn't have, great bumpers on either side of him. Now he's playing with Josh Simmons, who's a rookie, but Creed Humphrey, an all-pro player, is one of the bumpers on the side of him. Where last year at left tackle, we saw him get beat around the edge. So that potentially is eliminated. We've seen him get driven back some, though, in these one-on-one drills where he's getting pushed straight back. And I'm not at all saying that he's had a horrible camp, because I don't think that's the case. I just am left still with questions about whether or not that's going to work out at left guard. And we should all have questions. We haven't seen him do it in a meaningful game. And the Chiefs better have questions, because I agree with your point, Blair, that they didn't have enough questions about whether or not he could play left tackle last year. Didn't play much in the preseason, just decided after here in St. Joe that he was going to be the guy. Like, you need to seriously evaluate how this is working at left guard, and Saturday will be a bigger test than anything we've seen up here in St. Joe so far.
Another one I think about is Carson Steele. Is he automatically on the team because he plays fullback?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I definitely think he's on the outside looking in right now.
Needs a good game. I think
Yeah.
he needs to make a good impression.
Yeah.
Steele is
Makes
a
sense.
good example of why, and Vahe brought up Rashard Smith earlier, that people should watch the special teams plays because, Dave Tope said something, we always joke about Dave Tope getting some selections. He actually said he gives Andy his whole projection for the 53-man.
Yeah.
I'm sure Andy Reid loves that exercise. But Dave Tope does have some weight when they make those 53-man decisions, and so people should watch like who's getting the top special team snaps, who's returning kicks. We haven't seen Carson Steele be a major factor even on the guys returning kicks.
Nope, he's not.
He seems to be an afterthought up here.
Absolutely. As we said, Rashard Smith is listed as number 2 return man on the depth chart. But even if we put him there, Sky Moore is getting reps there. Mitchell, running back's getting reps.
Yeah. Occasionally Thornton and Royals from the wide receivers.
Yes, Thornton back there today
We'll get some.
before Carson Steele.
Yeah. I think he's got an uphill battle. But, last year, I think some of us were impressed a little bit by him because, running backs, as you mentioned, not brought to the ground. It was the first preseason game last year against Jacksonville. I think the Chiefs thought, this is a guy we need to really consider.
They had somebody. Yes. Remember, he had the 30-yard run in that game, which was the highlight of the game. Yeah.
And so that's the meaning of a game that doesn't count for the standings on Saturday.
The mention of Sky Moore made me think, that's our first mention of him. I think he's very much on the outside looking in overall, is he not?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
What will it take for him to inspire enough faith to say, okay, we think he can finally do it in games that count? I mean, that's the thing.
Sky Moore's had a lot of opportunity now.
He has.
I think the previous opportunity is probably going to carry a lot more weight than what we've seen from him. Look, he's missed time with a hamstring injury. He's back, but there's been flashes, I think, of Sky Moore, but I just don't think I don't think any of us thought he was terrible at training camp the past couple of seasons.
No, 2 years ago, I think we felt like, okay, this is where he's going to make the move. This is who he is.
I agree with you, and so. I just think we're past the point of getting excited about anything we see out of Sky Moore in a practice anymore.
Yeah. Let me throw one more name at you, and maybe this is impacted by the Christian Fulton injury. How about Josh Williams?
Yeah,
at corner. He is a gunner on special teams, so he's got that going for him. But it just seems like he is fallen out of favor a bit.
Totally agree. Funny, we started this with the depth chart. I should have mentioned that because we all have buddies who follow the Chiefs, and somebody asked me about Joshua Williams, and I was just like, yeah, man, what about Joshua Williams? Because it's hard to find his spot on the team as a defensive player. When you go through the cornerbacks, the fact that they added Christian Fulton and drafted Noah Williams in the 3rd round, like those guys are on the team. Najee Johnson's been playing with the ones. I think that the fact that Christian Roland Wallace is a slot corner helps him get on the team. Then you got Jalen Watson and McDuffie. Well, that's 6 corners. You're not keeping 7 cornerbacks. So I think Joshua Williams has an uphill battle as well.
He's such a good story, too. He's the
great guy for us.
Great guy.
Yeah. Just terrific talker, smart guy.
Division II player at Fayetteville State.
Yeah. Entertaining personality. I think he has an infectious personality in the room, too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that'll carry a ton of weight, but I think that'll matter, the fact that he's a very well-liked teammate.
And we'll see. We'll see, like I said, if special teams really saves him here. Yeah. Well, look, they're going to play 3 preseason games before they get to 53. So, and an additional 16 on the practice squad. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. I did want to, before we left, I haven't talked to you guys since the trade deadline in baseball. Just a quick thought on how the Royals did. We got to see one of the pitchers that they traded for on Monday night in the series opener against Boston. Bailey Falter, not a good debut for the Royals. 5 runs in the first inning, and he was just getting knocked around. And, of course, we're going to get Ryan Bergert, I guess. Is that how he pronounces it?
I think so. I've heard it said a few different ways, but I believe that seems fundamentally sound.
One of the 2 pitchers they got in the
JJ Picola, that Zoom call said that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Of course, he was one of the 2 pitchers the Royals got in the Freddie Fermin trade with the San Diego Padres. Last night's game notwithstanding, did the Royals come out ahead in the trade deadline?
That is a bit extreme, last night's game. I mean, sure, I feel like they did, but I think it's incrementally ahead, right? I mean, in terms of what they've front-loaded for now, I think Sam feels like this, and I do. I mean, the biggest move really was what they did with Seth Lugo and, extending his contract and being able to sort of be stride, if that's the right term, this season and the future all at once. I mean, to say, this gives us the power to do something that we wouldn't have been able to acquire this guy. Is it enough for the push? I don't know. Probably unlikely, but I don't think at all impossible. So I think between the way they spent money and the way they sort of were neutral in money on the trade market itself, they got younger with some starting potential pitchers. They need the depth in starting pitchers after the sort of chaos of the last couple of weeks with lingering Reagan's thing and Bubic and Lorenzen. So I think they did well. I mean, what we know is they didn't get the big bat. And I think
they got the big name. Yastrzemski.
Yeah.
They got Yaz.
Cool,
yeah.
Right? It's
especially playing in Fenway last night.
Yeah. And Homer in his first at bat in Toronto and all that. But I do believe, I'd love to hear what you guys say about this, that they're towing the line between being aggressive and reckless. And I don't know what it is that they would have had to give up to try to get whatever they think that bat is, and maybe that bat just wasn't available. I don't think it's for lack of due diligence.
I really like what they did because last night's start is not at all indicative of the way that trade's going to be. Same for when we do see Berger throw. They got guys who are under control beyond this year. Mm-hmm. They gained, I think, 11 years of starting pitcher control in that trade. So I really like the fact that their priorities, none of us are talking about the Royals' bullpen problems this year. And it's because of not what they did in the offseason, it's because of what they did at last year's trade deadline. And they obviously added Estevez at the close of the offseason, but Lucas Urseg's a guy, and Hunter Harvey, when he's been healthy, has been really good. He hasn't given up a run this year. And so, to me, as every other team in this offseason is going to be looking for starting pitching, because everyone's always looking for starting pitching, the Royals don't have to look for starting pitching in the offseason. And so, if you want the bat, now you can set your exclusively. That can be what you're prioritizing in the offseason. I would have really criticized the Royals if they had given up a lot this trade deadline, because I don't think this team is good enough to be a postseason run sort of team. Because even if Reagan's comes back, why are we just assuming he's going to be an ace? Chris Bubic has been among your best starting pitchers. He's out for the year. Noah Cameron's been terrific. He's already going to throw a career high in innings. And so if you're talking about September or even October, what's going to be left with Noah Cameron? I just don't think this roster is built to make this deep postseason run. And so, I look at what they gave up to help this year. Well, it's not just to help this year; it's to help next
26,
year
27.
and beyond. And you had a surplus at catcher, and if you can get 2 starting pitchers, one of them who you immediately plug in your rotation, somebody who could factor in at some point. I really liked their priorities, I guess I should say, at the deadline. Even if the result doesn't turn out to be the right thing, I thought they prioritized the right things.
Great stuff from Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian. Big thanks to our producers, Randy Mason and Monty Davis, and to our Redditors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. We'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC presented by Underdog, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.